What is up, YouTube? I'm Devon DaVinci, leader of the Renaissance Crew, and you're watching DaVinci Reacts. Today I got another compilation for a great intellectual thinker. This is The Best of Sam Harris, Amazing Arguments and Clever Comebacks, Part 1. This video is also done by Agatan Foundation. I've already done 2 of their other videos, one video about Christopher Hitchens, and one video about Matt Dillahunty. Like I said, this is, of course, Sam Harris, very famous, I believe, at this point. I think he's an atheist. I'm pretty sure he's an atheist. I usually, whenever I see him talking about stuff, he is making arguments against religion, but I don't know exactly what his personal beliefs are. I think it's safe to say he's an atheist, though, based on what he says. And he makes some very good arguments. So I'm going to go ahead and play this for you guys. And whether you guys believe or not, hopefully you have good reasons for believing. Just FYI, faith is not a reliable method of finding the truth. Anything could be based on faith, and faith has been proven to be wrong in the past. So hopefully, well, at some point we need to come up with a way of finding reliable methods, reliable methods to find the truth. I think, again, that should be something that should be taught in school. That goes a lot into a discussion I had in my last video I just did about Bill Burr and flat earthers. So let's go ahead and get into this and see what Sam Harris has to say.
It's true that some people define God as pure consciousness or as being synonymous with the laws of nature. But if we talk about consciousness and the laws of nature, we won't be talking about the God that most of our neighbors believe in, which is a personal God who hears our prayers and occasionally answers them. So I just want you to be sensitive to this, because if Michael or I say something derogatory about Islam or Christianity, which seems possible, the response from the other side shouldn't mention quantum mechanics. And it shouldn't reference a notion of God that is so denuded of doctrine as to more or less be synonymous with pure mystery or pure information or pure energy or pure anything. So I wanted to plant a flag there where you all can see it, because the God that our neighbors believe in is essentially an invisible person. It's a creator deity who created the universe to have a relationship with one species of primate. Lucky us. and he's got galaxy upon galaxy to attend to, but he's especially concerned with what we do, and he's especially concerned with what we do while naked.
In the form that he gave us when we were born.
He almost certainly disapproves of homosexuality, and he's created this cosmos as a vast laboratory in which to test our powers of credulity. And the test is this: can you believe in this God on bad evidence, which is to say on faith? And if you can, you will win an eternity of happiness after you die. And it's precisely this sort of God and this sort of scheme that you must believe in if you're going to have any kind of future in politics in this country. No matter what your gifts. I mean, you could be an unprecedented genius. You could look like George Clooney. You could have $1 billion, and you could have the social skills of Oprah, and you are going nowhere in politics in this country unless you believe in that sort of God.
Matter of fact, they probably call you in
I'd like
the
to
Antichrist.
take a moment, as many people have, to just acknowledge the void that is left by the death of our friend Hitch. While it might be possible to guess what he would have thought about a number of the topics raised here, it's almost impossible to imagine how well he would have expressed those thoughts. The man had more wit and style and substance than a few civilizations I could name. Many people claim to find it impossible to believe or to imagine that they won't exist after death. Just try it for a second. I mean, you imagine that everyone in Paris right now is getting along fine without all of us. I mean, none of us are in Paris. We are really, really materially absent from whatever is going on in every other city on this planet right now. You were absent for all of human history before your birth. The idea that you simply can't imagine not existing after death is really kind of just for lack of trying, I think. The deeper point here, and this is where the whole style and
yeah, that is actually an argument that I've heard somebody make, and the argument that I've used also in the past. I remember somebody asking, well, what do you think happens after you die? And the response is, well, the exact same thing that happened before you were born. Like, a lot of people think, like, well, I just can't think, like, because they think of, like, death as, like, you're asleep and you're, like, constantly forever asleep, and it's just eternal darkness, when actuality it's just non-existence. Or at least that's what I believe. Like, before you were born, you don't remember all of history before you were conceived. You just existed one day. Well, when you die, I feel it's the opposite. You'll just stop existing. It's not a matter of remembering or being stuck in some dark void. It's just you just don't exist there.
The deeper point here, and this is where the whole style and content of what you're saying is so deeply unscientific, is that there's not a physicist sitting on this stage right now. Okay, I would never be tempted to lecture a room full of 1,000 people at Caltech about physics. I'm not a physicist. You're not a physicist, and basically every sentence demonstrates that you speak on the subject. To not believe in God is to know that it falls to us to make the world a better place. We have barely emerged from centuries of barbarism. It's not a surprise that there are shocking inequities in this world. It is hard work to climb down out of the trees, walk upright, and build a viable global civilization when you start with technology that's made of rocks and sticks and fur. This is a project, and progress is difficult. Just picture going back 100 generations within your own family. I mean, just picture it kind of mapped onto this room, maybe this front row. Just 100 people. Your father's fathers, mother's fathers, mother's fathers' fathers, on back. Now, I don't care how cultured you are, how well-educated your family. You can be Matthew Chapman, whose great-great-grandfather was Charles Darwin. But if you just keep going, in no more than 100 conversations, you are going to meet someone who thinks that sacrificing your firstborn child just might be a good way to control the weather. It is... Some of you probably don't have to go back quite that far. You just have to go home for Christmas. Okay, if you're going to say that non-locality is an operable principle in neuroscience, that is woo-woo right now in neuroscience.
That is the principle in morphogenesis and differentiation. It's a principle in the workings of the pacemaker of your heart, where 100 pacemaker cells fire simultaneously, non-locally.
Saying it louder and relentlessly is not going to make it true. The great irony of the popular conception of science as arrogant is that when you go to a scientific meeting, you don't see arrogance. I mean, you're about as likely to see real arrogance as you're likely to see nudity at a scientific conference. I mean, this is people are constantly offering caveats and hedges toward what they say. Every statement is couched in, I'm sure there's someone in the room who knows more about this than me, but because everyone is desperate to avoid public embarrassment. Now, this seems to be something you're not doing. Okay, just think about the Muslims at this moment who are blowing themselves up, convinced that they are agents of God's will. There is absolutely nothing that Dr. Craig can say against their behavior in moral terms apart from his own faith-based claim that they're praying to the wrong God. If they had the right God, what they were doing would be good on divine command theory. Now, I'm obviously not saying that Dr. Craig or all religious people are psychopaths and psychotics, but this to me is the true horror of religion. It allows perfectly decent and sane people to believe by the billions what only lunatics could believe on their own. If you wake up tomorrow morning thinking that saying a few Latin words over your pancakes is going to turn them into the body of Elvis Presley, you have lost your mind. But if you think more or less the same thing about a cracker and the body of Jesus, you're just a Catholic.
I've had a discussion with somebody about this because I said one time, religion is the only thing in this world that can make a good person truly do bad things and truly believes that they're doing good. Somebody had listed a couple of examples, but the discussion was so long ago that I forgot what it said. So to be fair, I'm not gonna just reinforce it, but that was something that I used to say.
I think you've put enough on the table.
Okay, none of those are scientific evidence.
Many of those claims trespass upon the territory of science overtly. I mean, the claim about your understanding other human beings being suggestive of a divine artificer.
Is that a scientific claim?
Absolutely. I mean, is your understanding of mathematics also suggestive of a divine artificer?
No, it has to do with my experience.
Your ability to learn language?
Do you understand? It has to do with my experience of you. When I'm looking at you right now, you may assume that what I see is immaterial, but that's not what I see. And it's not what I believe. And I think
I understand it's not what you believe.
There's something in you that is more than you believe. I really think so.
This is
now, if you want to make that a scientific claim, you can. But I'm telling you, it's a metaphysical claim, and to confuse the two is a mistake.
Okay, you can add any metaphysics you want.
Thank you.
In that, by that means, I mean, I can say, I see you as a reincarnate personality, and I think you were probably
I was someone famous
on Atlantis.
Right. Yes. Don't make me like a washerwoman in a
people do this all the time. I mean, you can broadcast. I mean, this is constrained by our common sense in every other domain of discourse. I mean, just take, for example, the people who think Elvis is still alive. Okay, what's wrong with this claim? I mean, why is this claim not vitiating our academic departments and corporations? I mean, I'll tell you why, and it's very simple. We have not passed laws against believing Elvis is still alive. It just is, the problem is that whenever somebody seriously represents his belief that Elvis is still alive in a conversation, on a first date, at a lecture, at a job interview, he immediately pays a price. Yeah. He pays a price in ill-concealed laughter. Right. Surely you can agree with that is a good thing. Now then he could rattle on about this is not a scientific claim. This is a matter of faith. You know, when I look at you, I see you might be Elvis. I mean, he could do this.
Yeah, Sam every single speaker tends to have a different way of tackling something. Christopher Hitchens was a little bit more direct with it. Like if somebody said something that he thought wasn't a good argument, he was a little bit more direct in articulately saying that you're stupid. Matt Dillahunty, he was more... Like, he would make more of a joke out of it, but he would make you the butt of the joke. He wasn't afraid of, actually making you the joke. Sam Harris, it seems more like he, if he does find something he disagrees with, he will make a joke out of it, but he'll be a little bit more nicer with it. He won't directly attack you, and if he does attack you, he'll do it in a small, subtle way, so that, only the people in the back will probably get it. So each person has their different way of tackling certain things. Every single atheists do not have the exact same ideals, so don't just hear the term atheist and just assume that that takes care of everybody in this field. I feel like we as a society need to get out of this idea that somebody represents the entire group, because it's like a simple way of thinking, and maybe it's like a mechanism that we as humans have developed over years to try to help identify possible threats and stuff. But we're at a period now where we can move away from that. We know that not everybody follows the exact same ideals. I've already told you guys before that I am liberal. I am left-leaning. Some people probably do not realize that. This is probably the first time that you may have actually gotten that. But at the same time, I understand that there are very valid arguments from the right that actually holds water and might be some things that I even believe in. I've told you guys that personally, I tend to lean right on certain things. I'm very, I guess you could say, conservative when it comes to me and my own personal well-being. Like, me personally, I don't really support welfare and things like that, for me personally. But when it comes to like a society, I think that it's something that is important. When it comes to a lot of different right-leaning arguments, I tend to lean right. But when it comes to a society, I believe that it's something that, you know, as long as you have the freedom to do it and that freedom doesn't step on anybody else's freedoms or is harmful in any way, then I support it. I don't see how people tend to have a problem with things like gay marriage or people who want to be transgender or people who support things like abortion, weed, everything else, because it's not really stepping on somebody else's freedoms. And I know with abortion, you want to say, oh, what about the child's freedoms? That's when you get into a discussion about when does life start and all this other stuff. So there's another argument you have to have in that. So it's probably a little more complicated. But everything else, I don't understand why people tend to have an issue with it. Especially with things like gay marriage. I don't get for the life of me why people seem to have a problem with it. The only argument I can really think of about gay marriage is the whole Sodom and Gomorrah thing, and people thinking, oh, well, if people are gay, then our society will turn into this society that's similar to Sodom and Gomorrah, and God will punish us and this, that, and the other. My argument with that is always like, wasn't the point of Sodom and Gomorrah that God was looking for one person that was considered wholesome, and if he found that person, he would not destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, but the thing was he couldn't find them? As well, in your mind, if it makes you feel better, as long as if you're that pure person, then the country is safe. So you go ahead and sacrifice. Well, you don't have to sacrifice, just continue living the way you live and the country will be good. So we're all good. Let us sin in peace, I guess. But anyway, yeah, that's the whole discussion. I just want to make sure that, like, I don't like when people try to lump everything together. Not every liberal is some neo-feminist, social justice warrior type character that goes around getting offended by every goddamn thing. And every conservative isn't some racist, Bible-thumping Trump supporter. There are conservatives out there that are atheists. There are conservatives out there that probably believe in Medicare for all. There are conservative. Like, there are people out there that do not always fall directly in line with what is normally associated with that group. So actually try to get to know people for who they are and ask questions. Whenever I try to have a debate with somebody, I tend to ask a lot of questions, because what they might consider to be something might not be the same as the last person that I talked to. So if I'm having a discussion about God, I'll ask them, okay, what is your definition of a God? What do you believe? Because they might not believe in the idea that God is some all-powerful being or something. They might believe that God represents the universe, or God represents consciousness, or God represents love, or something like that. They might have something different. So if you try to get into a discussion with them and you're using all the talking points that you had with the last person, now you're just straw-manning this person, and it's going to backfire, because now you're wrong when they say, okay, I don't believe that. So now you're wrong. You have to go all the way back and try to reestablish an entire discussion, and you kind of hurt your own credibility, because it's like, okay, well, this person doesn't listen. This person doesn't bother to, like, they're straw manning me, so they're already just falling into fallacies. So yeah, always try to get to know people, ask them questions, figure out what they understand, what they know, and then have a discussion after that. But anyway, that's been this talk. I hope you guys were able to get something from it. If you liked it, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and share. I'm Devon DaVinci, and I have to go ahead and get these videos edited and out before all of y'all are asleep. But anyway, like I said, that's pretty much it. I'm Devon DaVinci. You've just been enlightened. I'm going to give you the deuces, and I look forward to seeing you on my next video. Deuces.